Hi there. I just wanted to make you aware of something cool and new. If you go to Duckfeed.tv/shirts, you can see the new way that we're handling physical merchandise for the network. We're using a new provider that doesn't require timed campaigns. And if you go there, you can see like 25 designs that are up, including the old traps, snakes, and turtles pillars, fake presidential shirts. We've got a new kind of logo tee, and we also have the Bonfireside Cats, among with logos and in-jokes from across the network. Not just t-shirts either, all kinds of apparel for your torso area, and also mugs and posters and bunches of cool stuff. They're reasonably priced, and we really think that you would enjoy these. So go to duckfeed.tv/shirts. That'll take you over to our TeePublic store. And we hope you enjoy that. And if you have any ideas or requests or anything, go ahead and send them via the contact form. Thanks.
Some of our landings were desperate adventures. We are now prepared to meet the inevitable counterattacks with power and with confidence.
If you seek pyromancy tomes, take this sage advice. The lands of the lords converge upon Lothric, the home of pyromancy's drifts, comparatively close as well. The place is called Izalith. Oh, how I wish to behold a primal pyromancy. Well, these are old tales. No one knows where the truth begins or ends.
My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Kole Ross.
And I'm Sean Wagoner.
And you're listening to Bonfireside Chat. It is a grueling favorite.
And this week we are talking about the Smouldering Lake and the small non-area that is within that called the Demon Ruins. And this is going to be fun. As you heard, we're joined by Sean Wagoner, also known as the Lore Hunter, returning from the Bloodborne season. Hey, Sean.
Hello, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, just so for people, people who didn't listen to the Bloodborne season, can you remind people how they might know you, what you do, kind of your relationship with the series?
Sure. For Bloodborne, I started a lore blog, thelorehunter.blogspot.com, where I started off by writing my own lore suppositions and stuff for Bloodborne, and that quickly became a place to just collect lore that everybody was talking about. A place to basically repost videos and Reddit threads and stuff as a way of archiving. And I'm doing the same thing with Dark Souls 3. So that's most likely where you know me. At Lore Hunter on Twitter is probably where most people would have seen me previously talking to you guys, or just generally Souls stuff.
Yeah, it's a really, if people who are listening don't know the blog, it's a really nice aggregator of stuff. It doesn't because Souls lore, and this thing we talk about a lot, is kind of a collaborative aggregate process. I know some people out there, I've read Reddit posts or read a couple of treaties where people are just I don't want to hear anyone else's ideas on this. And I feel like that's kind of defeating. I like this as much more as a collaborative community kind of thing. And your blog is a really good example of that.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Most of this stuff ends up kind of being scattered to the winds. You kind of have to catch it as you are, as it's coming along, right?
Yeah,
and so,
yeah, exactly.
So having somebody out there who is working to kind of get this and kind of categorize it and put it in this taxonomy is real useful.
Yeah, and it's what I'd be doing anyways, which is just a passion project. And I figure instead of having 1,000 tabs, I may as well have my own little website where I can also conveniently go to a place. So
yeah,
oh, very cool. Yeah, and we know we wanted to have you back on the show, and I'm glad to have you on this episode because despite me and Sean being friends, there are a couple things we disagree about, but this is our common ground. So we're breaking bread over the smoldering ruins of level design.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Cool. What did we do last time?
Well, previously we finished our explorations of the of Irithyll of the Boreal Valley and Orlando contained within, and defeated Aldrich, the Devourer of the Gods.
People are gonna flip the fuck out.
Yes, they are. Sorry.
No, I'm not. I'm making fun of them. I'm not making fun of you.
It's just one of those things. You just make a choice. Yeah, but Aldrich's the I kind of did both there. The Devourer of the Gods. Oh, now I'm in my own head. Fuck.
Yeah.
Get me out of this nightmare. And we kind of gained definitive proof that the ground that we tread on is at least partially built on the ruins of Lordran, or the land that was once called Lordran, right? And so before we kind of go to these dungeons below Irithyll to get this other Lord of Cinder, Yorm, who's hanging out down there, and perhaps another part of Lordran, we kind of we're going to go back a ways and find out what burns beneath the catacombs of Karthus, kind of on Irithyll's doorstep.
Yes. Yep. And it's weird, right? So the way that it's even less clear than in Orlando what exactly this is, because you have to paint a really firm convergy-worgy brush over things to make this fit, right? Like this is full of callbacks to Dark Souls 1. This is clearly the seat of the demons. Like there's not really an alternative to that, but it doesn't match the layout. It doesn't look like an actual it doesn't match up one-to-one to anything. So it is convergy-worginess is in place, to Demon Ruins, to Izalith, and to Ash Lake, which we had seen before.
Yeah, it is that. And then also, I feel like it's one of those places where when I think about it too long, assuming that this landscape is abstracted starts to become very confusing at the same time. Like, was this actually above this, or did they just converge this way? Like, this area in particular just gives all sorts of problems when you're trying to think of where it actually might fit somewhere. So
yeah.
It kind of holistically doesn't fit.
Right.
Like any way that you can evaluate a Dark Souls area. So either from kind of like a lore connection or a design perspective or spatially or anything like that, like none of the ways does it fit. And that's why I think it's the worst area in the game. It's just... and really low on the worst areas in the series. Like, I think this is pretty bad. Yeah,
it really sticks out like a sore thumb. I mean, like, if we are to assume, that different areas are over top of different places at different times, at some point, Karthus was over top of this, and there was nothing that even looked like a desert or like a low-lying desert kind of place, that was kind of over what this would have kind of feasibly been.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So lore-wise, we know a couple of things. Like, as I mentioned before, this is the seat of the demons, and what we are walking through once we get below the Smouldering Lake is the kind of remnants of their civilization or whatever it is. Right. We know the... I think we find items here. I don't think it's on the demon soul we found before. But the Chaos Flame is fading.
Right.
And the demons are a dying race.
Yeah, you learn that by looking at the demon's soul.
Is it the demon soul or the king? Yeah, you're right. We don't get it from the king demon. So even before this point, we knew that the Chaos Flame was dying out. Mm-hmm. And here is the evidence of such.
Yes. Yeah. And so, whether or not this is the exact same, I think the most charitable kind of thing you could say is that maybe this is like Irithyll was, and this could have just been some part of this place that we didn't see before. However, it doesn't bear any of the same architectural hallmarks of anything that we saw previously. And so this whole kind of convergence thing, even still, doesn't really kind of explain the configuration and why stuff ended up here, because like this is a real mismatch of a bunch of stuff from the first two games. Like the stuff from Dark Souls 2, at least items wise, ends up down here in a real confusing way.
Yep.
It's a mess, because when you say the architecture thing, like I'm 100% convinced this is supposed to be a representation of the Demon Ruins or Izalith from Dark Souls 1.
Right.
Like, I don't think that's really up for debate. The weird missed opportunity, though, is that, like, for all people hate Izalith, one thing it had going for it is a really strong sense of architectural identity.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was patterned after a real place, and it had that kind of verisimilitude to it that this totally lacks, because they just wanted to do like with the worst will in the world, you can think of the Catacombs of Karthus as like Dark Souls 3's Chalice dungeons. And then you move down here and it's like out chalices the chalices. Like it's just hallways. There's like almost no architecture at all, let alone like a clashing one.
Yeah, it's awful. Yeah, because I think possibly Miyazaki wasn't super happy with the exact representation. Like he thought the architecture used in Dark Souls 1 was a little bit too close. But I just disagree. I think if he felt that way, it was a mistake to retcon the architecture. It's like I learned about, I can't even remember the name of the temple or whatever now.
Angkor Wat.
I learned about, I'm an architect, so I've spent a lot of time looking at different types of architecture, and this is absolutely the worst architecture in this place. And it's even copied almost directly just from the Catacombs of Karthus, which is confusing. Like it's just so bland.
Yeah, like it feels like they took prefab parts from Karthus and then just kind of like slightly adjusted the textures and the lighting. It just feels like a recolorized version.
It was like it was built in the base crafting engine from Fallout 4. Like it's really just like hallways and joints. The weird thing too is on a meta level, if you were going to really phone it in on one of your like callback areas, why would you choose the one that was universally reviled and hated and like brought up as evidence of Dark Souls 1 being, unfinished and kind of bad? Like, and that's me saying that as somebody who kind of likes Izalith. Like I've never jumped on that train. I don't hate the demon ruins in Dark Souls 3 or Dark Souls 1. I don't hate the demon Izalith in Dark Souls 1. They're not my favorite, but I don't think they're egregious. But why would you take this thing that everyone agreed, or 90% of people agreed was absolutely awful, and then just totally just throw everything in the wall and not put any? It feels like the real like lack of care put into this. It's a weird choice.
Yeah, and it just makes me want some care and attention to be paid to the chaos. Like anything, which
has been such a like an also ran like the last like the Fair Lady in Dark Souls 1 is cool. Ingi is really cool. And then from that point on, it's like, oh.
I mean, the stuff that shows up in Dark Souls 2,
that's fantastic.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and that's it's so weird. For all we get shit about white knighting Dark Souls 2, for all of like the kind of fan reaction to it, Dark Souls 2 treated that idea so much better than this does.
Right.
Like the part of this, it dying out is fine. And actually, if something works in here, that's what works. But it's like they had an area, I mean, we'll get to this kind of like Monday morning quarterbacking, but the way that my perfect demon ruins or Smouldering Lake in Dark Souls 3, not the Smouldering Rake, that's a
that lady killer
novelty weapon. Yeah, that's a weapon you can get. It's similar to the nail bat and the tennis racket. And stuff. It has no slots, but it has a lot of base damage. But the way that I would reform the Smouldering Lake in this area is have no enemies, because it's a dying culture, right? Like, but instead they just like it's full of enemies. It's one of the most enemy dense areas in the game. Enemies that don't make any sense and are a huge pain to fight. There's none of that. We talk about that really infamous like interview that launched 1,000 fans, that whole idea of this like quiet dignity to Miyazaki, to his dying civilizations and stuff, and there's none of that on offer here. This is a very undignified area.
Yeah,
it bums me out, because I would have liked to have seen a dignified end to this kind of already what's kind of a weird side path to Dark Souls anyway. The demons and the chaos has never been 100% explained, but it should be treated better than this, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm also bummed that it kind of takes the promise of returning to Ash Lake, which is an area that I really, really enjoy, and then also doesn't do much with that either, especially thematically.
Yeah, it looks worse than Ash Lake too. Like I'm totally on board with the opinions you've expressed about. I just loved that like simple landscape, but it was so evocative, and I was just looking at a side-by-side picture, and Smouldering Lake, it looks worse than Ash Lake. It takes away all like the visual impact that I think Ash Lake had. So
it's kind of muddled and sickly, as opposed to being like stoically inert. And so like the name of this is feels kind of important to me, or at least it could be. The idea of something that's smoldering, it's burning and making smoke, without making any kind of flame, like something that is smoldering is on its way to just being ash, right? But there's nothing that actually like confirms any kind of intention behind that etymology, or links those ideas, which is kind of a bummer to me.
Well, and there's like, so the way that the reason why Ash, like I'm not as big an Ash Lake head as you are, one of the, the whatever you people call yourself, whatever the Ash Lake fandom community calls itself, but I like Ash Lake, and the two things I like about Ash Lake is as much as there's not a lot of complexity to the kind of lore or the story behind it, it's this is like it's like you found something ancient and kind of primeval is what it feels like. Like you found this base of the world, this base of the story kind of thing. So that's one. There's none of that here. There's no feeling that you are even arriving somewhere significant to this. Two, Ash Lake has a couple of enemies in it, but they feel naturally occurring and they're like quiet. It's not a combat encounter. Like there's that Hydra, which even that feels like a weird kind of afterthought. Like that. And this, they just kind of said like, oh, people will get bored if we don't make this challenging. Let's ramp it up to 11. As opposed to a couple of those, like, running into the clams in Ash Lake. It's like, oh, these things just live here. There's two of them. They're friends. Like, they live in two respective little pits kind of far away from each other. Blah, blah, bloop. Here, it's just like, I don't know, crabs. Like there's no quiet to it. It's even just like evidenced by the fact as soon as you walk into it, you get hit by a gigantic, garish fucking crossbow. Like this is a fuck you to you, Kole. Yeah. Like this is your personal fuck you. You like Ash Lake? It sucks now. It sucks.
Well, let's explore exactly why it sucks. We can build a really compelling case. I think we've made our opening argument. So the way you get down is kind of cool. Like the way this is hidden, I actually like. Oh yeah,
because that skeleton Easter egg from the Catacombs of Karthus episode serves double duty. Like it's fun to dump a bunch of skeletons, but then a ladder is just a bridge you haven't met yet, as the old saying goes. So you can knock down the bridge and use that as a ladder.
Yep. And you can either use that as a ladder or ride it down. So don't be a chump. Ride the ladder.
I always assumed. Oh yeah. I always assumed you would die if you were on the ladder when it fell.
No.
Yeah, that's weird.
That sense, but
you take some damage. It's not that big of a fall.
I knew you could fall down there, especially with the cat ring, if you grab that.
Yeah. But yeah, I love an idea, the idea of an area that you can discover accidentally. I mean, it's a little bit like Great Hollow, right? Where you will get this, and just if you have an errant swing, or if you're just kind of testing walls, like, whoa, wait a minute, what?
Yeah.
But down here, you kind of get to this lower section of the catacombs, and things start kind of like heating up. The kind of color of the light and the environment kind of changes, and we get to this kind of big, set piece battle that says, "Okay, demons are down here." By which I mean we have another one of our stray demons, like we found at the Undead Burg, and a little bit like the one at the top of Farron's Keep.
Yeah. I actually really like this encounter, just because. You get nobody likes the demons. So other things, there's little skeletons in the room, past him skeletons will raise as you get down there, and then a mimic in this room, and everything will fight the demon, which is pretty fun.
Did you discover that naturally, Sean? Like, did that happen for you?
Yes, actually. So I rode the bridge down, and I just I wondered what would happen because I saw I was patrolling around and I saw it as a mimic, and I just whacked it, and I started running away as normal with the demon and everything there, and they all just went right in on that demon, and I love that stuff. I love when enemies fight each other because it just automatically pulls you in and makes you feel like stuff is going on, and it doesn't necessarily care if you're there or not.
Yeah. It makes the world feel really alive.
Yeah.
When that happens, I really like it.
Happened in Doom, like it is a tried and true kind of device to use. These kind of pre-existing parts. Man, that mimic wrecks shop against that demon.
Really fun to watch him fight. The most times that I've done it, the mimic wins. So I guess I've done it 3 times. 2 times the mimic won. The 3rd time the demon won just by spamming area effect. So he just wasn't. I don't know if it was a change in the calibrations, like a change in the damage values, or if it just was a coincidence.
But the mimic succeeds despite having no like preservation instinct. Like it'll just like do his lanky attacks and not make any effort to dodge.
Man, how when you say preservation instinct, what if you were watching this fight and the mimic like backed away and drank an Estus? Can you imagine the lore explosion? The whole community would freak out.
The only equivalent that can be is people watching for celebrity deaths, and then the rush of activity that happens to go and change the entire Wikipedia to past tense.
Yep.
Yeah. But that mimic has a katana in it, and it's Lord Wolner's katana.
It's not. It's wielded by a short katana wielded by a swordsman and distinguished guest.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah. The reason why I know that is because I switched to this in my unending search in my current game to find a weapon that has any amount of efficacy at all. So I switched from the Henri's sword that they made suck to a scythe that wasn't good enough at all after buffing, and then now I'm using the black blade. So yeah, it is a guess that we don't know much about. The Mad Warriors in Dark Souls 2 use a weapon that's very similar to this, but yeah.
But down a ways past this, there's a bonfire, and things are starting to look just a little bit familiar, and they're starting to like really like light up a flare with the item placement because we find the old sage's blindfold, and also hey, it's the witch's ring. Yeah.
Now with do stuff.
Yeah. So yes, they're really signaling that yes, this is a swampy pyromancy kind of place. And when you step out, you look down on this, really sickly, gigantic lake with these pillar trees. It kind of looks like Isolus spilled out into Ash Lake.
Yeah, my first impression was, obviously it's gonna turn, but when I first saw this, I was like, oh shit, this looks awesome. Like, because it's just that connection where your brain has that familiarity, but it's different, and you're just like, oh, what's going on? And it's exciting, and that drains away in about 5 seconds. But yeah,
I found this before I found Irithel and Orlando and stuff.
Yeah, I came to this after that, but I had a similar experience to Sean where I was into it at first. Oh, yeah. Like when I kind of put it together, I was like, oh, this is a big ugly lava lake. And then I was like, oh, cool, this is probably Ash Lake. And my thought was, everlasting dragons. Like, I'm going to go down here, and this is going to be where, like, that dragon that was this weird anomaly that was alive in Dark Souls 1, that Chekhov's dragon is finally going to breathe fire. You can't have a dragon in Act 1 that doesn't breathe fire by Act 3. And thought that was going to happen. I did not really expect it to be connected to the demons at this point, despite fighting a demon right a second ago, because, I fought one on the bridge. We fought one in the Undead Settlement. Like, demons are just around, without significance. Like, the one in the Undead Settlement, I still don't really know why that's there. So there's demons don't always signify things. And so I was pretty convinced I was heading to Dragon Town, but sadly no.
It's kind of ridiculous how long I tried to hold on to hope that it would turn. It's just a little airborne. It's still good. It's still good.
Yeah. So as soon as you get down, like this reverie, like your time to think is interrupted kind of immediately by the game, because there's a gigantic Avalon by way of Latria crossbow machine, just raining down shit on your face from above.
Yep. And if you're having flashbacks to the Undead Settlement or any other place where the giant's arrows would hit you and then just completely interrupt the entire flow of what you're doing, it's kind of the same thing.
I like the Giant's arrow. Like I had fun in the Undead Settlement with the Giant's arrows because there's sort of a game of getting the other enemies killed, and so I kind of enjoyed that. But this is 3 of them, and so it's just not fun. And any way you could use that practically really doesn't exist, and it didn't exist for me very well. I know what I think you're supposed to do with it, but I could never get it to work. So. Yeah,
the stakes are so high to kind of depend on that tracking, because really the only things that you're going to fight out here in the open are things that can really, really wreck you up. We have these crabs, and then over on the far side we have this gigantic writhing worm, and then a couple of places where we can alter the world geometry in minor or semi-minor ways.
Yeah. So let's talk about crabulons and wormulons, and then because this is just a big flat area, similar to a standard Dark Souls big flat area. So we're not really talking about rooms or individual encounters. It's kind of like those two enemies. You can go either way.
Right.
So the crabs, which kind of litter to your right when you first come down here, which I really feel like a real randomly placed enemy to me. The reason why you might want to go here and deal with them is one, to get lots of large shards, a large shard sent you when you head over here, and then they have a chaos gem which you can get if you'd like as well.
Right. Otherwise, really the only difference that I noticed is that they're kindled, so these are the unkindled crabs.
Yeah. What the fuck is up with that? That like all the enemies in this place are like glowing, and it's like, well, I get that effect.
That means something in this game, though. You can't just apply it randomly. Like, it doesn't. They're going on their own little quest. They're doing crab souls in the background, and where that one that was in the skeleton ball was the main character, and we killed it. But yeah, time for crab over here.
Yep. But otherwise, this is aside from the fact that there are so many of them, this is actually kind of an easy place to fight them once you turn off the Avalon. Just because it's the most wide open, and you have the most kind of like ability to kind of maneuver them around with their big charges. Yeah.
Did you know? I just saw Zoe Koikum did a new video too. Do you know these things can be parried?
No.
Yeah,
I haven't done that.
It's pretty cool. Like, I think that's very funny.
Do you parry their business claw or their pleasure claw?
I believe that you parry their business claw, and then later you parry their pleasure claw. If the old euphemism holds true. But yeah, the idea of parrying a crab is very funny to me. That's what they're over there. There's some treasure. You can get the speckled stone plate ring, which you have to break a wall. That's there. That is like the little bit of resistance to everything ring.
Yeah. And then over by our Wormulon, we find the Shield of Want, which is just straight up Vendrick's sword. Or not sword, his shield. Sorry.
Nothing is what it seems.
Yep.
We find Vendrick's shield over here, and we fight the gigantic worm, the Karthus sandworm.
Right.
Over here, which is kind of like a mini boss.
Which people have seriously asserted is Solaire.
Oh my god! Yeah, when I saw that, I was like, should I shut down my blog? I'm not sure. If I should continue this.
So, if you switch the focus over and make it pretty soft, there is a line of antecedents there because the bad end for Solaire, or not the bad end, but one of the endings for Solaire is to be infested by one of these little larvas that possibly could have mutated him up to something like this. He does drop a lightning based miracle when you kill him, and also he uses lightning attacks. However, that is goofy.
There's only 3 elements in the game.
Right.
Like, everything that's lightning can't be related to Solaire.
Yeah.
Yep. I believe that he's the soup more than I believe that he's the worm, and I don't believe he's the soup. Like, that makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's a very prominent theory, though. Like, if you search on the subreddit and you search for Karthus worm or whatever, there's multiple posts with hundreds of upvotes talking about Solaire being the worm, and I just don't understand.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter to me if it makes any amount of sense. I reject it for being too stupid.
Right.
Like, that is too silly and dumb. And if that is the case, then somebody From really hated Solaire, because not only did they take away his kind of place in the lore that everyone built, but they said, like, hey, this guy that you thought was Gwyn's firstborn, not only is he not firstborn, he's not even human. He's this beast.
Right.
But there's no, like, he had a worm on his head, but there's nothing that suggests that mutates you.
Right.
Or anything. There's nothing there. Like,
yeah. So I don't mean to like laugh at something, but it is silly. It's too goofy. Like, this is Solaire's kind of too important for them to just kind of like railroad him like that. It feels like to me, at least in my gut, and it's kind of hard for me to think that people who are upvoting those or kind of putting this forward or really kind of hitting it aren't doing it ironically. Like, I could see that in the same breath as like, oh, Solaris Harambe.
Yeah. That's the hard
hits.
part of finding good lore stuff is you will get upvotes for things that are more meme worthy than anything else.
Yeah. It's just it's a stretch because it's the same way that human facial recognition works, or the same way that you see things in the dark. Like there isn't a conclusive answer as to what Solaire is. So everything that has, there's 40% evidence for ends up being, confirmed.
Right.
Yeah.
This is an intense fight, though. If you decide to kind of take him on, I think he looks impressive. It's very daunting. He's gigantic when you get up close to him, and he moves very, very quickly. Lightning is an uncommon element, so you're probably not kind of spec'd to, either absorb this or not absorb, but you know what I mean. Deflect it. Yeah, resist it. There we go. And so, like, if you're going to take this on in earnest instead of just avoiding it, you are in for a bit of a struggle. The quickest way to cheese it, though, is to lure some of these arrows down and try and have that hit this thing.
Yeah. It's not if you fight it fair, it's not a good fight, because it does the same thing that any of the enemies that charge do, where like I'm not really touching, they're not going through me, but there's an area effect to their charge. To where if you're staying next to the worm and attacking it, when it decides to burrow into the ground or up out of the ground, there's kind of an area effect that doesn't even have a particle effect. There's just, you get hurt if you're next to it when it does this. You don't have to be even really touching it if you're just close enough.
Yep.
You get hurt when that happens. And so you end up doing a lot of kind of cheap hit and run kind of things. And if you're fighting it fair, you're not trying to make the arrows hit it. You're still going to get hit by arrows during the fight, which is extremely not fun. If, with the best will in the world, the way that I think that because right behind this guy is the boss. Like, we didn't say that, but like the boss of this area is right behind this guy. You can just run right to the boss and then, take care of it, and then ostensibly have done the area. You missed a lot of stuff, but like the boss is right there. The idea is between the Avalon and the worm, it's discouraging you from going from the boss and searching for that back way around, right? Which you can find over in Crabtown. So yeah, I don't know that that's actually the case, but that's what it feels like to me.
Yeah. And, just because I have to make a choice on how to kind of structure these notes, I kind of assumed or worked from the idea that people would not find the floor that would break, and instead it took us into the bonfire that is at the front of the Demon Ruins.
Yeah. Which is also fine. I mean, just having the boss be last, but just know that you can walk over and take it if you want to.
No.
Which the lightning miracle that you actually get from this guy, this lightning stake, explicitly talks about miracle of the old dragon slayers. Solaire's not explicitly a dragon slayer. Like, he uses lightning, but that's not Solaire. Come on, guys.
He throws the lightning spear, which Gwyn threw to kill dragons.
That's one stretch too many, though. You can draw a line, but you can't jump over it. It's not that Cracker Barrel game.
Yeah, I'm just saying what I see.
Yeah, no, I know. That's why people think so. But like, the practices of ancient dragon slayers to me does not point to Solaire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anywho,
it's a kind of cool miracle though, because you kind of like place down a stake and it does like an area effect. I'm not sure how effective it is against actual dragons in the game.
It's not.
Yeah, because
my miracle build
those
sucks.
fly.
Like, lightning sucks in this game. Don't use it. Miracles suck.
Yeah.
Other than Dorhe's Gnaw, which is good. But.
Yeah. So, like Gary said, you can go directly into this. I'm going to save the boss for the end because I want to have some kind of climax, because this is it's a weird structure where you can just beat the boss halfway through.
Yeah.
And still have more area afterwards.
That's one of the worst parts. Like, we've spent all the time so far talking about how much it just doesn't make sense from like a story and lore and just geography sense. But in a game that I think has a lot of like my favorite levels in perhaps the series, like really top level design, sometimes it stumbles, and it stumbles hard here because it doesn't make any goddamn sense. I don't know why you would because that was the big turn for me. I was holding out for this area until I got to what I would consider the end, and the end is the equivalent of flipping off a light switch. And it's just super weird to beat a boss like 5 minutes into the level because just with the type of player I am, I took out the worm, I beat the boss, and then I continued forward. And it just made the pacing like, yeah, you wouldn't structure your show like this. Why would you structure a level in the game like this? So
it's really anticlimactic.
Yeah.
You know, that's what it is. It's like there's no that turning off a light switches. That's a perfect way to put it because that's exactly what it feels like. Oh, you mean I'm going to get rid of this hazard for this area I'm never going to come back to? Like
exactly.
it's just being polite. It's turning it off for the next person. It's the same thing as like turning off the light when you leave the bathroom.
Yeah.
You know, that shouldn't feel like that doesn't feel good.
Well, you're saving them on their arrow bill.
I guess that's true. Yeah, I mean, hopefully they got a tax rebate from the government for doing those fuel efficient arrows.
Yep. Oh man, at least you're not getting subsidies where they get money for every arrow they don't fire. That's lazy. Yeah,
that's
lazy ballistamen.
Get back to the chaos standard. Yeah. So so you actually go down to the ruins. You either go through the bonfire or you can fall through the floor in Crab City, as we mentioned. This is kind of hard to discuss as a level as well, though, because it's a maze. It's a lot of very same looking corridors that looks a lot like how chalices are hard to discuss on a room by room basis. There are a couple of specific encounters and set pieces, but most of it is just, hallways with two branches at the end. One goes to an empty room, one continues on,
Yeah. And sometimes there's a hole in the floor that leads to a lower level.
Yes. It feels very D&D in like a bad way to me, like old D&D modules with no sense of ecology or structure.
Yeah, done on graph paper.
Yeah, this was 100% done on graph paper. The graph paperiest level that we've ever seen.
Again, outside of the chalices.
I'd say even more that like chalices had round rooms though.
Oh, okay, true.
Like this is just blocks.
Yeah.
Like it's not even like a Doom map. It's like a Wolfenstein map.
Yeah, it's bad. And the main room, I was watching a Dave Control video earlier, and the only bigger rooms that you go into, for the most part, on the top level, they are actually 100% lifted from Karthus. It's the same place. They just changed these. It's like, what did you actually design for this area? It's a question of why. I mean, to be harsh, it's a question of why you even made this place if you were going to put so little effort into it.
Mm-hmm.
But because it's just corridors, so I'm not really sure. Just disappointing.
And so the argument that I could see is, okay, we wanted to fit Izalith somewhere into this, and we had these items that needed to fit into the world, and maybe this possibly links to some other flames we're going to find somewhere. Like that is incredibly tenuous, but again, we're just kind of saying this for funsies. Even still, don't like what we find here doesn't shed a tremendous amount of light. It doesn't feel useful or functional on a really broad, like, for as unsatisfying as it feels within the walls of this, like you leave here saying, what the fuck was that?
It's exactly like, I mean, I don't know this to be true, but to me, it feels like the urge, like, I think that once in Dark Souls 3, when they decided to start wrapping up loose ends from Dark Souls 1, like then it became a question of contrast. Like Dark Souls 1 having having a bunch of mysteries was fine, but once one of them is solved, like, oh, we wrapped up the loose end of Wynn's Nameless. That's just the example I'm using. There are other ones as well. Mm-hmm. What about the demons? Like, what about this? What about this? And it just became this snowball thing where everything kind of has to get a turn on the merry-go-round, And it feels like this kind of came at the end, like, oh, we got to do something with the demons. That was a part of this game that we made that, like, we're closing every loop on from the first game. Like, we can't. It would be weird if we just left them out.
Yeah,
and they just didn't have the either interest or time to make it good. Like, we'll get to it if you've got ideas on it, Kole. I don't think this relates to the Profaned Flame.
I mean, I want to talk about that when we get to the Profaned Flame.
Yeah.
Like when we actually get over there. You never played Metal Gear Solid 4, Gary, but this
I started playing it and then did like read a bunch about it. So.
Yeah. But I mean, this does a bunch of the same stuff where it's really, really kind of stretching to tie up all these loose ends around a thing that just got way too flabby for them to actually like make those ends meet,
Yeah.
And so like that, like just at its worst, and here it really is kind of at or near the bottom. It is an even less successful version of that.
Yep.
Yeah, it's really weird
I
when we
think-
run into this stray demon that has always had diarrhea, and then the game expects us to care about him.
Yeah.
Like he's
Yeah,
got lava shits constantly. And
What were you gonna say, Sean?
sorry,
I think like you're saying, this whole storyline with the demons and chaos, I'm like, I like that stuff, and I even like them dying out, but it was literally done more successfully in item description. Like I don't that was the best part of all this, and it doesn't even take place in this area. The most successful demon encounter is on a bridge in the undead settlement. So
yeah, that would have answered the question on its own. You know, like you know, it's like, oh, this is the last one. It's been wandering like Cain, and now we're gonna put it out of its misery. Then there's this kind of sense of sadness, like, oh, I just caused an eradication of a people. Like I didn't mean to, but I didn't even know I was doing it because I always saw these as enemies.
Yeah.
You know, even though I guess you ultimately do commit like demon genocide by moving through here, like you can kill the last demons. So then the main thing in these big semi corridors, the main kind of distinguishing feature is dead corpses of demons we fought before. Capra upon Capra upon Capra.
That's pretty
and dozens of
satisfying.
dead Capras.
yeah,
yeah.
it's striking at first.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because they turn to stone, right? And so I see the guys laying on the ground. That makes sense. But then there's also like statues, and I couldn't help but shake. I was like, did they stand there until they turned to stone, or did they make statues and then when they die, they also turn to stone?
What if that's the way that sculptors trick demons into making statues? They like ask them to stay still, and then like pretend to start sculpting something until the one that stayed still turns into a statue because the chaos flame is dying, and then just swap them. There are statues, and the ones that are dead on the ground aren't fleshy. Like they don't have the same color palette as Capra demons. Like they have turned to stone as well.
Yeah.
We know from the bridge demon that demons, as the chaos flame leaves, that's what happens to them.
Yeah.
They kind of dry out.
Yeah, they kind of desiccate and petrify.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we are introduced to the primary enemy of this area, which is Gru. All of our old Gru friends are back, which were not friends with me. And then we're introduced to a new Gru, the Smouldering Gru here. These extra guys who, like the thing about the Gru being here is like nothing we know about the Gru makes sense with them being here. Like the Gru aren't, they look a little demon-like. However, the Gru are explicitly descendants of the settlers of Farron Keep.
Right.
Farron Keep is where the Abyss Watchers are. It has to do with like Artorias' legacy, and everything has nothing to do with demons. Like those demons, like and the Abyss, have never really gelled together in the series. So why are there enemies that are related to, Darkroot and related to Artorias and the Abyss in this area that is explicitly about chaos and demons?
Yeah.
Drives me fucking bonkers. Like I hate that these guys are here. And I hate fighting them.
Yes.
Like the new ones they introduce suck.
Yeah. They're really deadly, kind of, just in terms of the fireballs that they can throw. And because this is mostly hallways, if you forget that one's there, or if you just kind of like try and make a route around them, they have a straight line of sight to just shoot you from across the map. That happened to me a couple of times. I like the way they look because they are kind of these chunky amalgamations. It feels like, they just these big antlers. They have kind of a demon machete kind of thing, and Gary orbs.
Yeah, I guess they do have orbs. They're bad orbs though. These guys, this is the dark side of orbs. Because not only do they shoot fireballs, which like that hallway thing can't be understated. It feels like this was designed for people who didn't like Shrine of Amana to be like, no, seriously, fuck you. Like what if you can't jump out of the way because you're in a hallway? But then their orbs shoot fireballs. Like they create turrets. They create options, so you can have fireballs shooting from these orbs and from the demons themselves, or they're not. God damn it, they're not demons from the Gru themselves. That sucks.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sucks.
Yeah. So they're kind of peppered throughout, but like you kind of have this big open area where they are mixed in with these other Gru, some of which are going to end up, at least they did for me, ambushing you and kind of like pinning you down and like sucking ember out of you, I guess, and charging up and then immediately doing the very same thing again.
The leapsters.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Who I hate because when you're locked onto them, their jump breaks your lock on.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever an enemy has a move that is explicitly designed to break your lock on, that drives me crazy.
Yeah.
I dislike it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was weird for me because when I was in Fair and Keep, I had no problem with the jumping guys because I don't know what it must have just been luck, but every time they'd jump, I'd break lock on, and then they'd land facing away from me right in front of me. So I thought that they were just set up to backstab all the time. And then here, all of a sudden, that didn't apply anymore, and they were just killing me over and over again.
They were presenting. They're just like jumping and turning around and just being like, hey, room for one more. Table for one, sir. Maybe it has to do with the ceilings. Maybe when they, when they're outside, they could jump their full jump arc, and here they hit the ceilings.
Yeah.
And that changes where they land. But it sucks getting hit by these things, and they chain do it, which is a real bummer.
Yeah. So that's kind of the majority of kind of the new guys that we're going to see. There are a couple of encounters that we're going to find here. There's a hidden room where you find a Black Knight fighting a Gru. And this is kind of the most Black Knights per capita, by which I mean 2 in an area.
Yeah. And these guys, they make sense here, right? Because the Black Knights of Gwyn fought the demons.
Right.
So like they're an enemy that actually makes sense. It does make the one that we run in Fair and Keep not make very much sense. Gru connects those two things. But again, like it feels almost like the description of the Gru should have been something else. If those were demons like encroaching, or like the descendants of the demons or the new batch or whatever is now encroaching on the real world and are overtaking Farron's Keep, like it would still be a little weird to have that demon meet abyss thing without answering any questions. But it just that Black Knight before bothered me more than these do. I kind of like this one because, again, like Sean said, you're running into something, the level fighting itself, which I always love. And 2, they're more fun to fight than anything that's actually in here. So
yeah, bummer.
Yeah.
So around here, kind of as we're headed towards this area called the King's Antechamber, our old friends are back. Our poop monsters, the demon statues, for kind of a one night only appearance in this very small confined. What's that?
There's 2 nights in this area. So. I like that one.
That made me so angry. Oh my god, it really did. Because it's exactly the kind of misunderstanding that we get all the time. I just kind of like, no, do I have to fucking explain myself? Jesus. Okay, proceed. Sorry, I don't know why, guys. I should probably introspect on why that made me so angry.
You're mad at me. I know. Not your enemy here, Kole.
I know. These guys are so slow and they're so ineffectual. They're just here to be set dressing.
There's one little side chamber with them that is like super overkill, where there's 2 of them facing the middle, and there's a treasure between them, and then there's a slime, like a lava slime on the ceiling. So you can pick up the treasure, the lava slime gets you, and then both statues breathe fire on you.
It's like when Master Shade killed himself to haunt Miwa's Atari game.
Yeah.
Yep. So ticking that box off. And we're over here kind of in this little annex, this antechamber, and this is right around where you can drop down from above, and this is where we start seeing some more kind of familiar stuff. Down in one kind of like big room, there's an Izalith pyromancy tome. Which doesn't tell us anything new about the Chaos Witches, doesn't say anything about what happened to them or their land. It just says, hey, they existed and they did pyromancy.
Yeah, it's just here if you still haven't figured it out.
Right. What is that demon statue and what is that fungus that is growing on it?
So I did some. Sean, do you have an answer for this? I have one, like a couple things I read, but I don't have an answer.
I don't really have one in particular. I did see a few things about it because it's always looked to me like one of those, the orb demon things. And I don't know what the fungus is at all, but it's the same stuff that's on Osiris, and I don't know what the significance of that is, but it's the same sort of growth. So I don't know, whatever it is on Osiris, it seems like it might be the same thing on this, I assume, petrified demon, but other than that, I'm not really sure.
The Osiris thing was the thing that I found as well.
Yeah.
That stuff, and that's somebody we're going to meet a long time from now. Not that long. I mean, we don't have that many more areas to cover in this game, but like we'll meet him in about 2.5 months.
Yeah.
I don't know why though. It feels like it's significant because it's statuary, and statuary is significant in these games, but and it doesn't. When I say I don't know why, this isn't like I don't know why there's fucking crabs there. Like I feel like the reason there are crabs there is just there need to be enemies. There might be something too that I don't know. So if anybody has any ideas, please send them in.
Yeah, and it appears twice. There are two of these guys. There's one kind of back towards the beginning as well, and that fungus really catches your eye. And I don't know if I'm looking at it with Bloodborne eyes, where fungus actually really is kind of explicitly important.
There's also an Estus shard here. Like one thing I can say for this area, and this is a really faint praise, but you do get like meaningful treasure from it, especially if you are a pyromancer. You get good spells, you get a interesting catalyst, you get a talisman. You get a lot of large shards for just general upgrades, and you get a Estus shard. You get a couple of bone marrow ashes. Like you get things from this.
Yeah. Well, imagine this. So I played the Xbox One version that came out. So I had the game like a couple weeks before the servers were online. So imagine going through this place and not opening any hidden rooms. That was my original experience because I just didn't think about it, and it all looked so samey. I was just trying to figure out how to get to a new spot without getting turned around. And so no messages on the ground except for developer messages. So I hardly found any of this. So it's a little bit better, but you always kind of have that first impression. And so that's always my first impression of there being even less stuff than there actually is.
Yeah.
Which just makes it, because that is kind of a nice part. But I feel like if I was a pyromancer, I'd feel like this was a chore I had to go complete versus being like excited to go down to the demon ruins.
Yeah, I'm never gonna get excited. It was just like some of the spells are kind of good.
Yeah.
You know.
So yeah, I mean, and that just makes it so you prioritize going here and getting this out of the way, so you can be more effective in kind of more interesting places.
Yeah.
So this kind of ends up being just a little bit of a dead end. There's another place where if you head kind of back toward the center and take another path, kind of catty corner from the Black Knight path that we took, we find this hidden room with a Quilana pyromancy tome that is next to what appears to be a petrified fair lady look-alike.
Yeah. I have no reason to believe this isn't the fair lady. Given the kind of relationship between these two people. Which is, in callbacks they're going to have here, I'm fine with this. It's a bummer that Quilana is dead. And the fair lady is dead. A lot of people talk about this in the same kind of tone they talk about the giant blacksmith in Anne Orlando.
Yep. So I mean, it's sad. It's also kind of weird that she lived this long, given how sick she was. And also what we know from her book, she took a human pupil, but kind of never accepted another. So assuming that, it was either Eingi or you who brought her that stuff, how did she survive with her sickness after all that? Like it
was Kirk, right? Like wouldn't that refer to Kirk? Kirk's the one who's been giving her the, maybe not pupil, I guess, but Kirk is the one who is hunting down humanity for the fair lady. Yeah.
And then kind of the timey-wimey, like multiple worlds kind of stuff. Yeah, it is. It's one of those things where like I feel very hesitant or reluctant to say, "Oh my God, it's the fair lady. Look at her, this poor woman." When there isn't enough certainty there for me to be like, "Yeah, definitely." I'm just I'm kind of being defensive and afraid that somebody's going to say, "Well, actually."
I'm pretty sure it's the fair lady. Like I mean, I'm not that. Yeah. That doesn't mean you have to be sure, but like there's given who we find, given the resemblance, given finding Quilana, like the last remaining sister, kind of there in her arms, and then giving the how close it is to the white hair. What is it called? Is it white hair?
Yeah, it's the
witch hair talisman.
Yeah,
which
the white hair talisman.
Yeah, that has there's only one of the sisters that had white hair that matches it. Like I'm pretty sure this is her. The actual timeline stuff, like it's such a non-starter to care about that. Because the game doesn't, it's like the same thing. Like the giant blacksmith hasn't rotted away. Like she didn't live that long. Like she lived like for a little while and then just didn't rot. Yeah. Because that's definitely the giant blacksmith. But he would be long gone as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those things where I'm guarding my heart, Gary. I'm guarding my heart.
But would it be just like a different, like, who would it be?
I have no idea.
Would be that, like, that's
another person who practiced some kind of pyromancy and got sucked in by the chaos as well, transformed in a similar way, maybe. Like, it's just weird, like what they choose to conserve and what they choose not to. Like, it doesn't feel like they are extremely consistent in calling those shots.
That's Dark Souls 3.text, man. Like that's I don't think they're consistent about it either. But I think that is what it is. I would be very surprised to learn that a set piece that's this intentional turns out to be something new when it has such great resemblance to something we know. Like that, and just in an Occam's razor sense, like I feel like that's really unlikely.
Siegvard.
Yeah.
Yorm.
Oh, Yorm isn't like anything we know.
Okay.
But the Sigurd is, but that's very much like, I mean, we're explicitly had Sean on this episode, so I don't have to fight with him about Sigurd. Like, right. let's not say the S word for now. We can have this discussion when we get to him.
So I don't mean to tie us up on this here. Like, I want to believe. I do. It's just one of those things where I'm pulling my punch, just a little bit for my own personal,
If it brings peace between our houses, I will say that, like, I would prefer a world where you're right. Like, I would rather have this be something new and kind of interesting rather than just like a crass manipulation of my feelings for a character that I care about in Dark Souls 1.
Yeah.
But that's what I think it is.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So you get that, and this.
Sean, is this Quilana in your book? Where do you fall on this?
Well,
settle a bit.
Yeah, well, I think it pretty much is, just because of the Dark Souls 3. So yeah. I think, like you said, I was one of those people who I think the giant blacksmith is a good comparison because, obviously that was affecting in the way that any merchant who was valuable, like you guys said in the episode, I had a similar sort of like, oh, that sucks, that they're gone and they have that little set piece. So I kind of like it. So I accept it as Quilana because otherwise it has less meaning to me because I can't find any other meaning to put into it. So.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're mechanically dependent on the giant. So, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So this is we can give this to Carla, who we'll meet later, and this gives you Fire Whip, Firestorm, and Rapport, which are useful spells again. And then nearby there is a gigantic pool of fire, magma, which kind of does, again, there's no ring, unlike Demon Souls and Dark Souls 1. This does the Dark Souls 2 thing where you just had to load up on fire resistance and make kind of sprints to get to these items. Yeah.
So yeah, the toxic mist is out here, which has a weird detail about Angi not finding any currency within the Great Swamp. Again, the mystery of what the Great Swamp is and where it ever was. I always saw Angi as a guy who was kind of, mostly a Blighttown guy, but
well, because he's the single evilest person in Dark Souls 1. Like, maybe not, but he's the he poisoned the swamp, manipulated the fair lady and stuff. So this just kind of paints him as a career shithead. Like, he left the Great Swamp and ended up in Blighttown, and then Blighttown he's up to his old tricks. Yeah. Yeah.
And then this is where you find that white hair talisman. This is a cool talisman that lets you do miracles and pyromancies.
There's an illusory wall inside this room full of rats that you can enter. This is the wall is behind a chest, which is feel like that's something we've seen before. And then we head down to where there is the basilisk zone, which are everywhere.
Yeah. I like how as we descend further, the root kind of intrusion in the walls and kind of root damage gets a little bit more severe, and like especially when we get down to where these basilisks are, we have their old like hatching husks, like their wasp paper stuck to the walls as well. It's just kind of a nice little this area is falling apart and fucking disgusting.
Yeah. And we get the Izalith staff here, which is really good for dark sorceries for a reason I don't understand.
Well, the witches before they became pyromancers used dark magic. I don't understand that, but okay.
Is that what it says in the description?
Yes.
Oh, okay, that's new.
Yep.
Because dark magic again came from a place like that's it's not arbitrary. Like we have an association, a pre-existing association that has nothing to do with Izalith.
Right.
There.
Yep. And down here's a really what I found to be a tough fight. So Nightslayer Sorig is down here. This is his human ass form, as opposed to the invasion that we got up in the catacombs. And he comes at you with a Fume Knight greatsword and his black iron great shield.
I don't think you're alone in this. I think this is widely considered to be really tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he kicked my ass quite a few times, and it doesn't help that once you die, you want to go back and get the souls. If you're not careful, you'll probably bring a few basilisks into the fight, which doesn't really weigh the odds in your favor.
No.
Yeah, I brought a bunch of basilisks up there because I wanted them to paralyze him or petrify him. I thought that'd be cool. It doesn't work, but he will fight the Black Knight. So that is a legit strat. He will wreck shop on the Black Knight, but the Black Knight can distract him long enough for you to get a couple backstabs or to kick him off the bridge. Yeah.
Just every time I tried to fight him, either shielded or not, he would break my stamina and then just critical attack me to death.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But that Fume Knight sword is really good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Great.
Yep. And then we mentioned that Black Knight, who's got his the great sword doing that uppercut attack. Man, I love that attack.
Mm-hmm. The golf swing.
Yeah.
Yep. So let's go beat the final boss of this stage, which is that crossbow.
Yeah. So you go up this kind of a series of switchbacks to get up there, which you can find the Dragon Rider bow, which the Dragon Rider bow, which belonged to the knights that served. Does it say Old King or does it say King of Want there?
Nope, it says Old King.
Oh really?
Interesting.
And the one, I took it down from the actual game. Yeah.
I'm just curious about that because it's weird because there are a couple Old Kings hanging around here. No, it says Old King of Want.
Oh,
according to the wiki.
Okay.
Longbow of the Dragon Riders who served the Old King of Want.
Okay.
Then it says the Dragon Riders were the Old King's Royal Guard, but in the first line it says Old King of Want. So this is another Dark Souls 2 item placement here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. It's kind of like you want Dark Souls 2, here's Dark Souls 2, we'll give you this one area and forget about it after that.
Yeah.
Yep. It's not connected to anything. It's just kind of like it just got tracked in on something's foot.
Yeah, but it's weird too because Sorig with his references are making references to a few things, but he's supposed to have gotten like rings, from Frozen Rings, which is like an Eliam Lois reference, which I start to go down that road because it has a chaos connection, and then I just immediately stop because the idea of them wanting to reference Eliam Lois in this area but then not actually following through in any way is just it's frustrating. And it's like, well, if you knew this was a connection, then why didn't you do anything with it?
Yeah, why didn't you follow through?
So
this entire run up is really tough, I think. You fight some bone wheels here, some regular skells, and then it ends with this encounter with two grave wardens, like these acrobatic, tough grave wardens.
Man, you really never fight two of them at once up in the catacombs. They're always with, they're generally with something else, but they kind of walk in this weird kind of staggered form where like you have a brief moment where you can maybe like drag one back down to where you fought the bone wheels.
And then you get up to the gigantic Avalon / Latria device. Turn it off. It's surrounded by dead giants.
Yeah.
When we had Richard on, he said that this it pointed towards Irithyll from here, but I don't know what that is. Like he was talking about the giants having a kind of war or rebellion. This would tie that to this area, but I don't know. There's no other giants other than these dead ones that were here, and the crossbow, facing down at the ground there. So
I'm not sure. It's confusing, and I was thinking about this before we started, and I was trying to figure out. So I kind of think that maybe originally the it doesn't really help with the lore overall, but I feel like the ballista was supposed to be maybe run by a giant but then they still wanted the connection for some reason, but then they just put in that little automatic thing because just having it be automatic feels like they probably ran out of time because, I mean, having that run automatic is the same sort of mistake as in Sen's Fortress having the boulder reset, whereas other times in Dark Souls, they'll literally have, like, in the same place in Sen's Fortress, you'll have the people open gates. So I felt like they were putting the giant there because they wanted giants to run it. And in that case, maybe they just wanted a giant ass a giant ass war machine, and they just needed big people to shoot it because I can't figure out. So there is the break in the stone wall to the left as you're going up towards it, and you can kind of see Irithyll. But why it would be facing down besides maybe... Like, the best thing I could come up with is that Karthus was trying to shoot at the sandworm, and they used giants because maybe they enslaved them like everybody else likes to do. But otherwise, I couldn't draw a conclusion there.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that it's pointed at the demon ruins implies that somebody, was using the giants and saw the demons as a threat.
Yeah.
Right. Or it was repurposed depending on the timeline. Like, it was pointed at Irithyll. The Karthus guys killed the giants, then repurposed it, turned it. I'm not exactly sure how they would. It doesn't actually pivot.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I mean,
I
and
hate
also
that crossbow. Like,
we don't know how recently the giants died. Maybe they saw us coming up, and then they bit down on the cyanide capsule in their tooth.
Sure. So their secrets would remain safe, like all giants do. The series, will deny you any giant knowledge. You're gonna try to figure out giants. Fuck yourself. They'd rather die than give up their secrets. I don't know. I hate getting up here, and I hate that lack of reward that comes with it. I first learned when I first got up there, my thought was maybe this would be fun for PvP, but then Jeremy tested it, and you can't turn it on. So if a host turns it off, you cannot go up there and turn it on and get your surprise 40% damage on them even. It's just like there to be turned off so you can fight crabs in peace, I guess. Who gives a rip? Like, I cannot get excited about that.
Yeah.
Really bums me out.
Yeah. I mean, so what it feels like, just so much of the time we're trying to find some kind of justification for, things that were put in for gameplay purposes. This is a very serious example of like, hey, we had this idea for a concept of a level where there were arrows raining down on you. And like, that's just what this level is. And here's the barest pretense for it. Yeah. Sometimes a crossbow is just a crossbow.
Yeah. You drop down some ledges to get back down to the front. By this point, you've probably already fought the boss, but we're still going to go deal with them. There's also something that we would have done already based on our actual play chronology, but we didn't want to cover the entire area. And that's wrap up Horus here.
Yes, Horus, Henri's mute assistant, who got separated from him in the catacombs and fell down here. And in fact, you can kind of go back into this small little area and look up and actually see the catacombs. Like, if you look down from up there, this is what you're seeing, these items strewn about. And Horus is going to come down here and either gone hollow or gone mad. Yeah.
And probably hollow. When he first disappeared, I felt like it was kind of arbitrary, but somebody wrote in or somebody hit us up on the Facebook page and said he probably happened, like he was already kind of on the edge because he's just a grunt monster. And probably happened when he got separated from Henri and couldn't get back.
Right.
So he got lost down here, and that's fine. Yeah. It's kind of a fun fight.
Oh yeah.
With him, like I like this fight with Horus. And there's some cool things that can happen here. So as we mentioned before with Henri, you don't want to tell her, hey, Horus is down there waiting for you, because it's more or less a trap. You want to either say you haven't run into him, or you can say he's dead. If you finish her quest line successfully, go and help her fight Aldrich. This is where she ends up. She comes here, she builds a little shrine for him, which is pretty cute, but then she goes hollow, and you mercy kill her because Dark Souls 3 loves mercy killings. And that is the ending for most NPCs in the game.
As we also stated before, if she doesn't end up coming down here and hollowing, you end up fighting her where you got the crushed shield.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he gives you the Llewellyn shield here when you actually take him out as well. But there's not, too much to this part of it. It's just in service of Henri. It's hard for me to call like Horus a good NPC. Like he's an accessory, to Henri, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But it's a good fight. It's fun. I also like the Llewellyn shield.
Mm-hmm.
If you have the carry capacity to use it, it is very effective.
Yeah. Yep. So now let's stop beating around the bush and head towards the boss. One of the weirdest secret things that can happen in this game is that you can summon, if you summon Great Swamp Cuculus here.
That's not a name.
Cuculus, yeah. The Great Swamp Calculus.
Yep.
Here. If you summon him, then he is implied to be
it's a
her, yes. Is the apprentice of Corinx. So Corinx, what little characterization he has, he talks about like what is a teacher without a student. Like he's very much into having this kind of relationship, a teacher and student relationship. So when this is his former student. So what happened there, I don't really know. But you can find her gear, including the spotted whip, which is like a good poison whip, where you found Cornix.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is pretty obscure.
Yeah.
Like I saw that from a video. I didn't have it happen for me naturally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because why would you go back there?
Yeah, why would I go back there? Why would I summon a pyromancer to fight a fire demon? Yeah.
So. But you go through this fog door, and the boss doesn't attack you right away. He's kind of laying in a heap in the center of this gigantic arena, kind of surrounded by more of these petrified demon kind of things, including the centipede demon, which is fun. But when he stands up, he kind of lights on fire. The life comes back into him, and we are fighting the old demon king.
I guess there's a Demon King.
Yeah. I thought they were more of a constitutional democracy.
It's kind of an oligarchy.
Okay.
From each according to his flame, to each according to his cinders. Yeah. So this fight. There's not a lot to it. I don't think this is a bad fight. No.
But I also don't love it. I think it is okay. He reminds me a little bit of Eldritch in that a lot of his kind of primary motivations involve keeping you away from him. Yeah. He does a lot of area effects, a lot of big sweeping attacks that can go 270-degree arcs to stop you from getting up next to his legs and attacking him where he's weak.
I like his one attack where he will kind of raise the club up and then jam it into the ground, and it kind of sends out that asterisk of flame.
Mm-hmm.
That is that's kind of neat.
Yeah, and he can send out a ring that heads out and then doubles back, which I like a lot. You get to roll through it twice.
Yeah. But yeah,
so very, very good.
Yeah, it's a nice callback fight. And I love the way that he looks. He has that big old bushy beard. He's got those antlers kind of growing out of him. Like he's very imposing. What sticks out to you, Sean?
It was so when I first fought him, I was a dex build. I actually used my bow to kill him. He's relatively weak to it, and so I got to see the whole fight and its main thing. And I'm also a pro Aldrich fight where it's the same thing. Something about those patterns where I just really like that sort of, it's gamey, but it's gamey in a way I like rolling back and forth through the fire. And I was using my bow and sort of zooming in. So I had a lot of fun with the fight. It wasn't hard at all, but it was a lot of fun because the patterns were like tricky enough to keep me on edge, but it was easy enough to follow them that I never felt like I was being overwhelmed with the fight. Mm-hmm. And then I also, because the bow was a little slow, and I'm honestly not sure why I just went with the bow the whole time, but probably because he's keeping you away from him. But so I saw that 10% trigger that a lot of people don't see, which gave me a lot of goodwill for the area that faded in time. But just the fact that how he is sort of like goes out is just it's just a cool moment that I think wraps up the demons fading and turning to stone much better than the actual area does. Is just how he sort of pants there. I really like it in the game when they choose to have this moment where you sort of act as the executioner versus like this duel fight.
Yeah, it's so rare too.
Yeah.
I mean, because you get him down, to that low, to low health, and kind of like for a while there, as you do more damage to him, he kind of heats up and glows, kind of more fiercely. But it never really happens that a fight ends with a whimper, right? They're almost always progressing through different stages. Getting kind of more and more difficult, more and more kind of capable as they are trying to, stop you from killing them. They're like in a real fight side of fight or flight. Here, it's pathetic. And,
it's Sif.
Yep.
Yeah, he's the demon equivalent of Sif, at least for that. And we've seen a little bit of that when we fought the demon on the bridge, how you can knock out his legs. And it's a mercy killing as well. I'm 100% with you, Sean. Like, I think this wraps up what they are trying to do. Like, this and that description of that demon are all they really needed. Even like and maybe 4 dead cameras.
Yeah.
As opposed to 400. Like, it ends up feeling ostentatious and kind of shitty. Where like, if you're trying to make me sad, you can't. Like those things. Restraint is more important. Again, like I said at the beginning of the show, but now that we've gone through it, like imagine this area with no enemies. You go through this,
exactly.
you go through this culture, you find their statues, you find their corpses, then you find this one king who's like barely, kind of struggling to breathe, sitting down, reclining in the middle of this room. He's the last of his kind. He stands up, puts up like a kind of noble fight, and then you put him out of his misery.
Yeah,
and that's the note you end on. That would be incredible. And
that would support kind of a read on the ending and kind of the cosmology and where we're at in the cycles too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. As opposed to one of the things that frustrates me about where we're supposed to be in the cosmology, that like everything is close to dying, this is supposed to be a darker shade of gray than we've ever seen, is that everyone is hyper competent. We don't have any fights where it's like, oh, this is kind of easy, but the point of it is that it's, that's the point of it. There are no Estrellas, no real King Alants, no Gwyn's. Like there's nothing that is, there are fights that are easier than others, but none of them are easy because the person is past the height of their powers. Yeah. Everyone is at the height of their powers in this game.
The world is on its last legs, but nobody who lives in it is.
Nobody knows that. Yeah, nobody knows it. Like everyone is just acting like they're like this. They feel like stronger than the most mighty beings in Dark Souls 1. On average. And I understand that's a gameplay thing. Like you have to just keep ramping up challenge with different sequels. But one of the things I love about other entries in the series is how it would use that kind of sadness or patheticness and anticlimax to have an emotional impact. Right. Like you fight something like going back to the Bloodborne season, how much sugar we talked about the Mikolash fight, which is largely considered to be pretty easy fight. Some people have a real hard time with it, but most people consider it to be pretty easy. And that feeling of like breaking his heart, as you kill him, that's so resonant. And I just don't have that fighting these ultra gods in this game. Yeah. And it just kind of sucks. Like even the twin princes, which we'll get to, which are kind of pathetic figures, still put up an incredible fight. Yeah. There's none of that sense of anticlimax.
Yeah. Pathetic, not in the like I spit on you, but like exhibiting pathos and the kind of sympathy and emotion, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And then that all is like capped off with the end boss, which I like. Really, really drives me crazy. Like as far as how little it does to make me feel the same things I felt at the end of every other game.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is this could have been worse as far as that goes too. This could be like Demon, or Nameless King Hard, and that would have been like such a huge dissonance. Instead, the area is Nameless King Hard. The area I think is one of the harder areas in the game. Just those hallways with the snipers. And it just doesn't support the theme.
Yeah. And it's a great detail about this guy. When you pick up his soul, which you can turn into kind of the Forbidden Sun replacement, and you can get his hammer, like it says, like this is the last witness of the chaos of Izalith.
That's such a good word.
Yes.
Or like the final witness of it. It's like when the last like World War II vet dies.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yep.
Yeah, very good. Sean, do you have any kind of wrap up stuff on the boss, or I guess even just the area of this. Sorry if I talked over you there. I didn't mean to.
Oh no. Overall, like as you've alluded to, I do like a lot of stuff that Dark Souls 3 does, maybe more than you guys have, and you, Gary, and I have discussed that in areas. But this area is really it's unfortunate at how much it just doesn't work. And earlier we talked about how it's sort of wrapping up this chaos storyline, but at the same time with the Gru being here, it's weird. It's like they've decided to wrap up a storyline that I don't think needed wrapped up in this way, but at the same time I think they've created unnecessary confusion with the current world. So it's like at the cost of, and as someone who likes the Dark Souls 1 connections on the whole, it seems like at this point they've hurt the game on a whole area level by trying to wrap up something. They've made the current world less logical and more confusing, because and I mean that's the main thing for researching for this, is just having these like weird inconsistencies topped off with the Gru. It just feels, I hate to throw the word out, but like not like lazy. It feels like they ran out of time to do something cool and they decided to do it anyways, and they decided to do it based off of an area from Dark Souls 1 that was criticized because they ran out of time. It's like a cycle in the worst way.
Yeah. So it's something that Kole, like an expression that Kole said that I learned from him that I like a lot, which is like buying something cheap by paying something expensive, or something like that. Like, they didn't get what they paid for when they decided to wrap this up. And as far as like areas, incomplete areas in the main game, as far as like things I feel like we need to know more about, right? Like we need to know more about the Profane Flame. We need to know more about the Lothric royal family. The Abyss Watchers weren't that bad. Like the Abyss Watchers, like I kind of got it. And this literally just sets it back 20%, for making sense. Like I was ready to let the Abyss Watchers live and let live. And now it's like, I really have to examine their relationship with the Gru, and that's not somewhere I wanted to be. I thought I'd close that case. And or at least close it to my satisfaction. Like I was like fine with it, and now it's muddied up.
Yeah. Smouldering lake, muddy waters.
Yeah. That's the is that the Aloha form of muddy waters?
Yep. Yep. I'm just sad. I really, really wanted to like this, as I said, just how long I held out hope, how long that fire kind of still burned, specifically this area and everything. I think it got a little bit of a goose when you got to the old Demon King. I it's an okay fight, but like the trappings of it are pretty good, I think. I don't know.
We didn't really. I mean, I guess in the fight, one thing I just want to mention, I really like his summoning boulders from the sky thing. As far as enemies that have ever done that, like Rom and the Living Failures and stuff, I like this one the best because there's a clear response to it.
Yes.
Like it's a really nice risk reward where you can go in and get a couple attacks in. He doesn't like do an automatic area effect or anything like that when you attack him, but then you know where to go, which is on the other side of that corpse pile. And there's something kind of like awesome about using literally the piles of his dead to protect yourself from his magic.
Yep.
Like you're using the ruins of his kingdom to kill him, kill him, which I like.
Yeah. But to finish my thought there.
Sorry. Cool.
No, don't worry. I just, it makes me sad that the idea of the Chaos Flame and, Izalith and the Demon Ruins and the witches and stuff never really got its day in court. It never, nothing ever really did it justice in the way that I think that idea in this presentation kind of has the potential to be really powerful, in a game that is about flame. It is super weird to have the things most associated with flame kind of just consistently not hit with the full impact that it feels like they could. I'm with Gary in that, like, Demon Ruins of Lost Izalith, it's it's kind of not great, but at the very least it's distinctive. And here it just feels, and it feels like trying to light a wet match or something like that.
Yeah, it's smoldering. Yeah, real bummer. But it's okay. Brighter pastures are ahead. Yes. Because next episode we are going to be talking about the Aerithal Dungeons, an area that I like quite a bit, actually.
Yes. Yeah, and it's another area that's kind of corridors, but much, much better corridors.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a better way to do corridors for sure.
Yeah.
And it is also a real callback to something, but it's a callback to something that's referenced far less than other things in the game. So I kind of dig it. Sean, thank you again for joining us for this. Where can people find you online?
You can find me either at the Lore Hunter on Twitter, or if you're interested in seeing what Dark Souls 3 lore I have collected, you can check out darkSouls3lore.blogspot.com.
Nice.
Recommended. Yeah, so we, as per usual, we let Sean go before we do our admin, but go check out his stuff.
Yeah, it is.
He's a great dude.
Yeah, he's kind of a great, and this is a weird word, but it's a great curator of the stuff that kind of bubbles up to the top. Yeah,
his original stuff is really good. Like the as well. Like we referenced it obliquely in the thing, our disagreement about Sigurd, but he is, even though I don't agree with him, he has written what I think is like probably the best like defense of that character and callbacks in general.
Yeah.
So it's really nice. Like I wish that everyone who I disagreed with was as articulate as Sean is.
Yeah.
And so some other people who I've read stuff online. Like I like it when someone presents something I disagree with and does it really, really well.
Right.
Because I want to understand them even if I don't agree with them.
For sure.
So
yeah. So next time, Gary, are we still doing the PvP special?
Indeed, we are. We had to get that scheduled and everything, but I did verify. We're going to be joined. We're going to be doing the first of our specials. We have 3 of them planned for this season, sprinkling them in. And the first one is about Dark Souls 3 PvP, and we are going to be joined by Peeve Peverson.
Yeah, we've been trying to get Peeve on for a while, haven't we?
Yeah, absolutely. He's like a super nice guy. I like his stuff a lot. If something happens and we have to punt that down the road or something like that, please understand. But as of last time I talked to him, that's on. The only reason why I say that is because he's a really busy dude.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's going to be a real teaching, like all of our PvP specials since the first one. I'm going to try to get in a little bit of time, but it's going to be a lot of just like an expert in that, talking to us about what's changed, what the scene is like, what's the meta, things like that.
Yeah.
So it'll be a little bit less involved than our PvP episodes for Dark Souls 1. I have had really bad luck with Dark Souls 3 PvP.
As have I.
And I don't like it that much. I'll do my duty, but it's not my favorite thing. Yeah. But I am interested in learning about it because it feels like it is kind of alive again after Bloodborne PvP was a little bit dead.
Yeah, a non-starter.
So if you have, we're going to do an appendix episode for that. If you have PvP stories, this is the time to hear them. Hit us up with PvP stories. We want to hear them.
Yeah, and there's the usual kind of caveats for that, which are we are looking for messages that are concise, novel, and the clearer that you can write them, the better.
Yeah, read them out loud before you send them. That's good advice for everybody.
Yeah.
And then after that, we'll be getting back to, like I said, to Irithyll Dungeons. When I said next time before, I meant the next regular episode.
Yes.
But yeah, we'll be getting to that, and I'm excited about that.
Yeah, Irithyll Dungeon and the Profaned Capital. So if you have any thoughts about that as well,
will happen.
What's that?
Yeah, that's when Seagate will happen. So the
Siege engine. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. If you like this show and you want to support it, there are a bunch of different ways you can do that. First of all, thank you for doing so.
Yeah.
Second of all, the biggest one is patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. That is how we keep the lights on and how we do so many shows without, literally burning to a crisp. That's how we stop from going hollow.
Yes.
You throw a couple of dollars in the jar every month and that keeps us, keeps going.
Yeah. And if you are a fan of frequent Bonfireside Chat contributor Jeremy Greer, you'll be delighted to know that we are extremely close and perhaps maybe even crossed it. We're close to a goal where Jeremy and Gary do a show about the X-Men animated series.
Yeah. The whole it's not the first season, I guess, of the podcast. I guess it is, but the 4 episodes covering the first season of the cartoon are recorded, and they're all very fun. And we really want to get to it and do the rest. And we'll probably do some other X-Men adaptation stuff. The show is really fun to do. So after we get done with the cartoon, we'll probably do the movies, things like that, because we're both huge X fans.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited to have Jeremy on a regular show. The network, he's been kind of, like a satellite, host on the network for a long time.
Yeah.
and it's hard for me to think of somebody who I'd rather have join us kind of on a more permanent basis.
For sure.
Yeah.
So check that out. That is patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. We have a new thing that I mentioned at the beginning of the show, but going to mention it again here. If you're interested in getting apparel or other items themed after our shows on the network, either the shows themselves or certain in-jokes from across those, you can go to duckfeed.tv/shirts and check out the new store that we set up. This is not like a limited time campaign or anything. These are print on demand. They're really good quality, and check those out. There are like 25 designs up, and that's going to continue to grow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing you can do, ratings and reviews on iTunes. The last few ones we received have been very kind. We really do thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Those help us. They help more people know about the show, as does talking about us on blogs, Twitter, and things like that. When you do that, we see it. Because we look because we want to see if anybody is want to make sure it's nice to see, and then also if somebody's actually asking us a question, sometimes they'll add us at a Twitter account that like is only there to sit on it. So we look for that kind of stuff. So we see it when you do that. We really do appreciate it. You can also join us on Facebook.com/bonfireside chat. Join the discussion there. That is a good place for links and everything.
Yeah. Good times. I can't think of anything else.
Yeah, no, I think that's about it. We will see you guys for PvP next time. I'm excited. And until next time, what should they do, Kole?
Well, they should watch out for a character named BSC invading them. I've been a very helpful person, blue knighting around and rescuing people, but I'm coming for you.
Yeah. And I am going to, I'm definitely not going to start a brand new character, but I will probably end up using whatever my guy is named now, which might just be also BSC or like Bonfire Boy or something like that. Yeah. Or I might be actually playing through with Gary and Kole. Gary and Kole that's my traditional name for my playthrough for the show.
Okay.
So Gary and Kole that character might invade you. Nice. But you will totally trounce the floor
with either of us, yeah.
Yeah, not least of which because my entire build is a lie. So I'm looking forward to just destroying me. Umbasa.
Umbasa.
And we all pray that we will have far more soon